And breaking tonight, 3 former Trump rivals take the stage this hour at the Republican National Convention to talk about their party, its candidate, and the future of the country. Welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly on a very busy night here in Cleveland. Before Governor Mike Pence takes the stage for the very first time as Donald Trump's running mate, we will hear from no less than 3 of Mr. Trump's former primary rivals. And some might even say potential future rivals should Mr. Trump win it all in November. We're talking about Governor Scott Walker, Senator Marco Rubio, and Senator Ted Cruz, who interestingly held a campaign-style event right here in Cleveland earlier today. And in a moment that can only be described as surreal, or one you just cannot make up, Senator Cruz's rally was literally overshadowed by Donald Trump's plane. At the exact moment, Senator Cruz discussed how he fell just short of winning the nomination, and just watch the crowd's reaction upon seeing Air Trump fly by. Watch this.
Our party now has a nominee. And I don't know. All right. That was pretty well orchestrated. Jeff, did you email them to fly the plane right when I said that?
Can you believe that? In moments, we'll get reaction from the Trump campaign, but first we begin with America's Newsroom co-anchor Bill Hemmer live on the convention floor. Bill?
Megyn, good evening. I've been with the Texas delegation for the last 2 hours, all 155 of them. One outstanding question tonight. Will Ted Cruz, more than 2 months after dropping out of this race, endorse Donald Trump? We don't know that answer right now. Many in the delegation hope he will. Many in the delegation want him to. Some others expressed the fact that they believe he should stand by his principles. One woman told me that he signed the pledge 11 months ago here in Cleveland, Ohio, and he has to stick to his word. The Attorney General, Ken Paxton, leads this delegation. I talked to him a moment ago. He says he doesn't know what Cruz will do. It's a 50-50 shot to see whether or not he does. Also, Cruz will be out in about 45 minutes. In about an hour's time, you'll see 32-year-old Eric Trump. His moment is in the spotlight tonight, a night after following his sister and Donald Trump Jr., who was well greeted here by the delegation in Cleveland, Ohio. I asked Eric Trump how the speech was going to go tonight. He said it's going to be good. And then he followed with, and you're going to love it. We'll see you at 10 o'clock Eastern time tonight, Megyn. Back upstairs.
Well, throughout the day, political analysts have pointedly reminded people that Senator Ted Cruz has yet to endorse Donald Trump after their bitter primary battle. Now, Senator Cruz is being offered some words of advice from Governor Chris Christie. The New Jersey governor delivered a resounding show of support for Donald Trump last night and is making clear he wants Senator Cruz to do the same.
And Donald Trump knows that for all of this.
So I hope Ted Cruz gets up tonight when he speaks at the convention and keeps his word and endorses Donald Trump. He should, and especially the way he was kissing Donald's rear end for the first 6 months of the campaign. And if he doesn't, then he's less of a person than he presents himself to be to the American people.
Joining me now, Kat Pearson, national spokesperson for the Trump campaign. Katrina, great to see you.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Happy birthday, first of all.
Oh, thank you.
Great way for you to celebrate it.
I can't imagine it being anywhere else.
Should Ted Cruz endorse Donald Trump tonight?
Absolutely, Megyn. Look, in the beginning, it was Donald Trump. Everyone questioned if he'd be loyal to the party. And he signed that pledge, and he committed to doing everything that he could for party unity. He's been meeting with leaders. He's been talking to grassroots. He's been going all over the country meeting with governors and senators and representatives because of his commitment to unite the party. And now it's time for the senator to do the same.
I know they spoke, Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. Do you know how that went?
No, they are not talking about what they've discussed, but they have talked, and Mr. Trump invited Senator Cruz to speak again, making that effort to unify the party. Mr. Trump understands how important that is going into November.
Does Ted Cruz get that done if he doesn't say, come on, let's get behind Donald Trump?
I think if he doesn't endorse, it's really more reflection on him, not really on Mr. Trump. I mean, if we've seen the attempts to stop Mr. Trump, if they failed miserably. In the Rules Committee, 87-12 was the vote. During the roll call, there's there's so much support here for Mr. Trump. We're talking about 13 million Republican votes, breaking the record, 38 states. Mr. Trump
But you
is
saw
the nominee.
Senator Cruz's people still aren't there. They're booing Trump's plane. Which, I mean, what do you like? Once again, Donald Trump overshadows Ted Cruz. I mean, it was really unbelievable.
Well, it was a sign. It is a time to acknowledge that Donald Trump won the primary, and it's time to back the nominee.
It was divine intervention.
It was divine intervention, and that's perfect for Senator Cruz. A lot of these individuals feel like this is God's plan. But the one thing we know as believers is sometimes our plan isn't God's plan.
Do you agree with Chris Christie that it's a character moment for Ted Cruz?
Absolutely.
He was saying, after, as he put it, the way he kissed his butt in the first 6 months of the campaign, and then they fell apart, Cruz and Trump, that this is a character-defining moment for Ted Cruz.
It is, and more
you
importantly,
used to work for Ted Cruz. I want the audience to know. You worked for both of them.
I volunteered for his campaign, absolutely. And this is why it's much more important for Senator Cruz, because he is the candidate of the people. He is the one that runs on the Constitution and wants to put government back in the hands of the people. Well, the people made their decision, and now it's time to act accordingly.
What do you make of it? Because tonight we're not just going to see Ted Cruz, we're going to see Marco Rubio, we're going to see Governor Walker, all of whom have been so harshly critical of Donald Trump. He was, of course, harshly critical of them as well. But there's been a lot of bad blood, particularly in this election cycle. How full-throatedly do they need to come out in favor of Donald Trump? And do you think really the party and these guys can let bygones be bygones?
I think so, and I think that when they do come out and give their speeches, some of them are going to just support the nominee, some of them just want to support the party, and some will support Donald Trump. And that may be enough for a lot of voters. However, it's different with Senator Cruz simply because he was very popular among the base. He was right there up into the bitter end with Mr. Trump, and they did have a very nice relationship early on. And this is more about Senator Cruz keeping his commitment and honoring the party nominee.
So what are you, a Leo?
Cancer.
Cancer, okay. Great to see you.
Great to be here.
Thank you for being here. Well, when Senator Cruz takes the stage tonight, he's hoping to channel another conservative who also failed to win the party's presidential nomination the first time around. In 1976, incumbent President Gerald Ford beat California Governor Ronald Reagan in the delegate battle at the convention. After President Ford delivered his acceptance speech, he waved for Ronald Reagan to come down and speak to the roaring crowd. What happened next proved Reagan's legacy was far from over.
I believe the Republican Party has a platform that is a banner of bold, unmistakable colors with no pale pastel shades. We've got to quit talking to each other and about each other and go out and communicate to the world that we may be fewer in numbers than we've ever been, but we carry the message they're waiting for. There is no substitute for victory. Mr. President.
What a moment. Charles Krauthammer is a Fox News contributor and syndicated columnist, and with me now. Charles, how good would it be for Senator Cruz to do that tonight?
Well, I think he wants to follow the Reagan footsteps. It's one of the classic scripts in American political history. The runner-up, very popular with the base, comes in sort of unexpectedly, delivers a speech of his night, and graciously then endorses the guy who beat him, knowing that they were likely to lose. They did lose. It's a close race, but they did lose, and that he would be the heir, which he was. In 1980, he was the front runner, and he kept it, and the rest we know is history. Cruz sees himself as that kind of man. Therefore, I think, even though we hear this is a matter of character, this is a matter of promises, this is a matter of political calculation, cold and raw. Cruz made a cold and raw political calculation at the beginning. First 6 months, don't attack Trump, deflect when everybody else was decrying the denunciation of Mexicans and Chinese and the McCain remarks and all that. He refused to comment. So he thought he'll ride the Trump train, or actually a more accurate metaphor is he was drafting behind the Trump car on the racetrack. And then when it came down to a few, it was one-on-one, and they dog-eat-dog, and he took a lot of insults and blows, particularly for his wife. And that's a point where I think it did get personal. But Cruz...
And his father. His father as
involved in the Kennedy assassination. That is a little bit far out there. That's Twilight Zone.
That really got to him, you could tell.
got to
and
him.
his supporters.
It got to everybody because that is, a little bit out there, way out there. So now he's got to decide. I suspect, I have no inside information, but I've been watching Cruz. I think a lot of people understand him. If his calculations are sort of as astute as I think they are, and remember, he's a freshman, came out of nowhere. He's a runner-up in a nomination. He had no business getting this far. I think he's looking to 2020. He's going to give the speech of his life, and it'll be about conservatism and beliefs and implicit criticism of Trump, perhaps. But he's got to end it with an endorsement and a call to arms to beat Hillary. That's the script. I wonder whether he'll follow it. As you know, the real script, the one he's written, has not been read by the Trump people.
Right.
It could be a decoy. That's what I would do. Write a phony script and then you make it up. But I think that's the path he's got to follow.
So the risk to Ted Cruz in endorsing Donald Trump is that, as we saw with the plane flyover, a lot of Ted Cruz supporters still do not like Donald Trump. They don't believe he's a conservative, and they don't want Ted Cruz throwing in behind him. Although tonight we're hearing that the Texas delegation wants him to endorse him tonight, to endorse Trump tonight. And in Ted Cruz's bruising battle with Donald Trump in the primary, he called Donald Trump a pathological liar, called him utterly amoral, called him a bully, called him a fraud, called him a cavern of insecurity. And that was just for starters. So I know that it's always difficult in the primaries. They always throw some punches, but that was extraordinary. So does he lose some credibility at all if he endorses?
I really think not. We have very short memories in American political history. We have had runner-ups who've said something like that. I think this year, probably the level of the personal vitriol was a little bit higher than normal, but this is not off the charts. And they all reconcile. They all say, well, in the heat of the battle, you get Obama and Hillary in 2008. Then all of a sudden they're chums. You get Johnson and Kennedy, 1960. This goes back a very long way. So forgetting is very easy. We have even shorter attention span in the age of social media and television. Nobody remembers yesterday. So I think that can easily. I think Cruz will have no trouble placating his supporters. Placating his enemies is something different, and that's the more important job. He'll always have his supporters. He's not going to lose them. He needs to convert people who are pro-Trump and, should Trump lose, who will be looking for a leader.
I would love to know what happened in that phone call between the two of them, because I'll bet Trump was his charming Trump. He can be his aggressive, sort of punching everybody Trump, but he can also be very charming. And I'd love to know how he did it with Ted Cruz. We'll find out at the end of that speech, perhaps.
But above all, we have two champion political calculators. They're looking out for themselves, and here their interests coincide.
Charles, great to see you.
My pleasure.
Still ahead, Scott Walker, Marco Rubio, and a special message from the Trump family about their dad. Those video compilations they tend to be the best moments in these conventions sometimes. Plus, new fallout on a fierce speech from Governor Chris Christie. Did he go too far? A couple of special guests of our own weigh in next.
And this very subject came up. Think about it. The Supreme Court, he and I talked about the court. He raised that as a concern. And we talked about the fact that Ronald Reagan nominated Justice Scalia over 30 years ago to be on the court when I was in high school. We cannot concede the court to liberals like Hillary Clinton for the next 30 years. The consequences are too great. After hearing the FBI director's report a few weeks ago, heck, I listened to that and said, I wouldn't even give Hillary Clinton the password to my iPhone, let alone access to highly classified information.
Governor Scott Walker fired up. Speaking of this crowd without prompter, the only one we've seen, really, who's not using the teleprompter, just sort of riling up the crowd from the heart and getting the crowd chanting, America deserves better, we heard moments ago. We're still waiting for Senators Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz to make remarks. When they speak, we're going to listen in. But another big story is the continuing fallout from last night's fiery speech from Governor Chris Christie. Governor Christie brought the convention crowd to its feet with what he called a, quote, prosecution of Hillary Hillary Clinton's record. Watch.
So, as to Hillary Clinton, the charge of putting herself ahead of America, guilty or not guilty?
Well, while most at this convention seem to love that, a lot of mainstream media folks,
The night was heavy on harsh rhetoric, much of it directed at Hillary Clinton.
Do you think it's good? Yeah, they were chanting, lock her up, having a really good time with that. Do you think that's a good thing for American politics when political disagreements result in basically a crowd becoming a mob saying, lock her up?
You incited this crowd to get on their feet, to talk about her, to say guilty over and over again. Do you think that is unifying the party in a way that's good for the country?
But despite the criticism of the New Jersey governor, the attacks on Mrs. Clinton seem to be taking hold, with a new LA Times poll showing Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton now tied, resulting in a polling average that is now almost a dead heat. Joining me now, former senior advisor and campaign manager to President Obama, David Plouffe. David, great to see you.
Good to see you, Megyn.
This is the guy who got Barack Obama elected, so he knows of what he speaks.
Me and a few other people.
Yeah, I give it all to you. So she's leading him now in the Real Clear Politics of all polls by just 2.8%. It's pretty close. What do you make of that?
Well, we won only by 4 points against Governor Romney, and that was an Electoral College landslide, so it doesn't take much. But most of these polls show a huge number of undecided voters, and the real trick for a campaign is to understand who those voters are, how they're likely to break, and what's the best way to reach them. And I think when you unpack that, it probably suggests that Hillary Clinton should be headed to a pretty comfortable lead in the national vote.
Why?
But I think the question really is because I think a lot of those undecided voters lean Democrat. I think you're going to see some Republicans stay home. She clearly has turnout challenges, too. When I look at it from the Electoral College first, though. So Mitt Romney got 203 electoral votes. And right now, I don't see a single state that Romney lost that Trump should be favored in. And that's really what they have to focus on. I don't think so. I mean, Hillary Clinton's going to...
Ohio?
No. I mean, we won... So where we are right now, Cleveland, we won this area by 260,000 votes. Won the state by almost 200,000. Pennsylvania.
But if you look at today's polls, because he's not running against Barack Obama, he's running against Hillary Clinton.
But the reality is, in both the Philadelphia area and the Cleveland area and the suburbs, she's going to walk out of there with big margins. There's just not enough vote, in my view, for Trump to make up. Even if
so,
Clinton,
why do the polls show them tied in Pennsylvania, tied in Ohio?
I ran a presidential campaign and was responsible for another. I never paid attention to polls. What matters is you have a pretty good sense as a presidential campaign who's going to vote. There's a lot of people who say they're undecided that truly aren't, because you have some sense of how they're likely to break based on characteristics. The real question is there is some true undecided voters, and that's where the campaign lies. Both campaigns do have turnout challenges. So I think when you look at Pennsylvania, Ohio, Florida, Virginia, and that's the other thing. Trump could win Florida, Ohio, and Virginia, and Clinton would still win the presidency if she wins the rest of the Obama states. So she has her challenges. I think Democratic enthusiasm is not what we need it to be. Yep. She needs to work on that next week, just as Trump needs to do that here in Cleveland.
How do you think the convention is going so far? What do you make of it?
Well, I think the only thing that matters is Trump's speech. And if he energizes Republicans, gives them more confidence, and I think particularly provides an economic message that is captivating to true swing moderate voters, it will have been a success.
You don't think the kerfuffle over Christie is anything?
No, I mean, I haven't seen anything yet that suggests that this would reach out to moderate voters, even voters who voted for Obama twice. But what matters is Trump's speech. So if he nails that, and I think he's got to do three things. He's got to unify the party. He's got to give the party more confidence. But he also has to send a strong signal to swing voters in places like Ohio and Pennsylvania. This guy's got some interesting ideas, particularly in the economy. The truth is, his son, I thought, laid out the best articulation of the Trump economic theory we've heard yet. He needs to do that tomorrow night.
You've been, it's been interesting to talk to you about Trump as this campaign has gone on. At one point you said, they'd rather run against Ted Cruz because Donald Trump is so unpredictable. What do you think now?
Well, when we talked a few months ago, I thought there was a chance Trump could make this race very close.
Yeah.
I don't think he's really seized the opportunity. I mean, he really had 2 to 3 months before Clinton got done with Sanders to define the race, define the economic choice, and really start talking more to the middle of the electorate and unify the party. He really hasn't done those things, so he's squandered that. So he's still unpredictable. Like getting ready for the first presidential debate, you're going to have to prepare for like 4 different Donald Trumps. It's going to be an enormous challenge. I don't envy them that. And I do think he has appeal to some voters in Ohio, some voters in Pennsylvania, southwest of Virginia, that maybe a Cruz wouldn't. I think the trouble is he probably hemorrhages support in suburban areas. So that's a challenge for Trump. Gain what he can in some of those more rural, conservative areas without losing too much suburban vote.
David Plouffe, always so fascinating. So fascinating. Thank you so much for being here. Well, here to respond, Dr. Ben Carson, renowned neurosurgeon and former Republican presidential candidate himself. Dr. Carson, great to have you here. Thank you so much.
Always good to be with you, Megyn.
So what do you make of that? I mean, I've heard that from a few pundits, that Trump and this convention has done little to reach out to persuadables or more moderate voters. Do you think that's the goal?
Well, first of all, I would take issue with that. You know, a lot of these persuadable voters are listening to what's being said, and many of them had been buying the propaganda that's put forth by the secular progressive movement about how wonderful Hillary Clinton is. And I think that's why for the first few nights there have been these educational seminars on who she really is. People need to understand that.
When we were talking before about all the terrible things Ted Cruz had said about Donald Trump, you were in a similar boat where Trump was not nice to you either. But you forgave. I mean, how did you get past that? Because he really did savage you, but you've become a full-throated supporter.
Well, because it's not about me. If it was about me, I would never be able to get over it. But this is about our country. This is about what happens to our children and our grandchildren. This is about whether we become a country that is up for and by the government versus a country that is up for and by the people. That's way bigger than any individual.
What do you make of the mainstream media criticizing Chris Christie's tone? Some criticized you because you made a reference to Lucifer in talking about Hillary Clinton. Do you expect them to be as questioning if we hear harsh rhetoric at the Democratic National Convention about Trump and his supporters next week?
Of course not. They'll barely even mention it. But you know, we can't worry about them. They're almost a lost cause. They've forgotten what their mission is as the press, and the reason that they are the only business that's protected by the Constitution is because they were supposed to be honest and on the side of the people, not taking sides. They're lost cause. But what we have to do is we have to go out and educate people so that they understand what the stakes are here. I've heard even some Republicans talking about, well, you know, if Hillary gets in, we only have to deal with it for 4 years, 8 years at the most. But that, of course, is very naive thinking, because not only the Supreme Court, but the federal courts will be packed with people who share her ideology.
Those are lifetime appointments.
Absolutely, and our children will have to pay the price for that.
You know, and by the way, they are saying that Ted Cruz has already made up his mind to run in 2020, no matter, even if Donald Trump wins. Have you made any decisions along those lines?
Yes.
What?
I have no intention of ever running for public office again.
Never again?
No.
Why?
Well, I wouldn't have even done it this time had it not been for the tremendous outcry of the people.
They were demanding you do it.
Right. That's the only reason that I did it.
So you don't feel melancholy at all being here? Like, this could have been me, this could have been my time on the stage as the nominee.
I feel relief. Being in, 2 or 3, 4 cities, waking up and not knowing where you are. I mean, no, this is a relief, but I still am just as passionate about saving our country. And I will continue to devote my efforts to making sure that we create an environment of safety and prosperity for our children.
Well, I know there's so much love for you out there among Republican voters and others as well. I mean, we hear it from our viewers of all political stripes, so thank you for spending time with us. Great to see you, Doc. Night 3 of the Republican convention is underway, and we are waiting on speeches right now from some of Trump's fiercest rivals, including Marco Rubio and, as we mentioned, Ted Cruz. And still ahead, in a Kelly File exclusive, you've got to wait for this, Mark McKinnon reveals what he learned backstage right after Donald Trump Jr. cast the votes that put Donald Trump over the top when it came to the nomination. He was there with the Trump family. He joins us live. Breaking tonight, day 3 of the RNC, and the theme of the night is Make America First Again. And we are waiting 2 highly anticipated speeches from 2 former Republican presidential hopefuls. Senator Marco Rubio and Senator Ted Cruz. And joining us now from the floor of the convention, America's Newsroom co-anchor Martha McCallum. She's down there with the Texas delegation as we await a speech, which we're told is coming up early now, as we should expect him any moment, from their Senator Ted Cruz. Martha?
Hey there, Megyn. Good evening. We are here in the thick of the Texas delegation. Let me tell you, this is going to be one of the most interesting moments of tonight. All day long, we've been trying to get a handle on what Ted Cruz will say and whether or not he will endorse Donald Trump tonight. The campaign has been very tight-lipped about this, as has the Cruz people. It's worth pointing out that the Cruz structure is still very much in place. A lot of discussion about whether or not Ted Cruz is going to get up there and essentially make a case for himself for 2020. I have read his speech. The contents are embargoed, but I can tell you from a general sense that essentially he is not going to endorse Donald Trump, but he will stand up there and tell people that they need to vote and that they need to vote their conscience. Another person I spoke to, a very high-end conservative circle, said to me today, this could be a Reagan 76 moment for Ted Cruz, almost a speech that he hopes perhaps will make people have some buyer's remorse, that they might stand up and say, Ted Cruz is thinking like a conservative, perhaps he's the person we should have picked. Of course, it's too late for all of that. We saw the last-ditch efforts of that unfold on the floor here over the course of the last couple of nights. The Never Trump movement is over. But Ted Cruz will make his case as a conservative, and many say with his sights on 2020, regardless of what happens here, even if Donald Trump wins this election, there are those who believe that he will contest that in 2020. Still a lot of sour grapes between these two campaigns. It's interesting that he's speaking here tonight, that he was given a slot with apparently no assurance of an endorsement. So Ted Cruz will take the floor shortly here this evening, and we'll get a better sense of what he's going to say. And most importantly, Megyn, how it goes over on the floor. How will the Trump people here respond to this message from Ted Cruz tonight? Will they be receptive? We'll see. Back to you guys.
Absolutely, Martha. Thank you. Joining me now, Chris Stirewalt, our Fox News digital politics editor, and Dana Perino, a former White House press secretary, who I'm going to stand by because Ted Cruz is coming to the floor. We'll get to them after. Let's watch the senator from Texas address this crowd.
So honored to join you here in Cleveland, where LeBron James just led an incredible comeback victory. And I am convinced America is going to come back too. I want to congratulate Donald Trump on winning the nomination last night. And like each of you, I want to see the principles that our party believes prevail in November. Conventions are times of excitement, but given the events of the last few weeks, I hope you'll allow me a moment to talk to you about what's really at stake. Just 2 weeks ago, a 9-year-old girl named Caroline was having a carefree Texas summer, swimming in the pool, playing with friends, doing all the things a happy child might do. Like most children, she relied upon the love that she received from her mom, Heidi. and her dad, a police sergeant named Michael Smith. That is, until he became one of the 5 police officers gunned down in Dallas. The day her father was murdered, Caroline gave him a hug and a kiss as he left for work. But as they parted, her dad asked her something he hadn't asked before. What if this is the last time you ever kiss or hug me? Later, as she thought of her fallen father and that last heartbreaking hug, Caroline broke down into tears. How could anything ever be okay again? Michael Smith was a former Army Ranger who spent 3 decades with the Dallas Police Department. I have no idea who he voted for in the last election or what he thought about this one. But his life was a testament to devotion. He protected the very protesters who mocked him because he loved his country and his fellow man. His work gave new meaning to that line from literature: to die of love is to live by it. As I thought about what I wanted to say tonight, Michael Smith's story weighed on my heart. Maybe that's because his daughter Caroline is about the same age as my eldest daughter and happens to share the same name. Maybe it's because I saw a video of that dear, sweet child choking back sobs as she remembered her daddy's last question to her. Maybe it's because we live in a world where so many others have had their lives destroyed by evil in places like Orlando and Paris and Nice and Baton Rouge. Maybe it's because of the simple question itself. What if this, right now, is our last time? Our last moment to do something for our families and our country? Did we live up to the values we say we believe? Did we do all we really could? That's really what elections should be about. That's why you and millions like you devoted so much time and sacrifice to this campaign. We're fighting not for one particular candidate or one campaign, but because each of us wants to be able to tell our kids and grandkids, our own Carolines, that we did our best for their future and our country. America is more than just a landmass between 2 oceans. America is an ideal, a simple yet powerful idea. Freedom matters. For much of human history, government power has been the unavoidable constant in life. Government decrees and the people obey. But not here. We have no king or queen. We have no dictator. We, the people, constrain government. Our nation is exceptional because it was built on the 5 most beautiful and powerful words in the English language. I want to be free. Never has that message been more needed than today? We stand here tonight a nation divided. Partisan rancor, anger, even hatred are tearing America apart. And citizens are furious, rightly furious, at a political establishment that cynically breaks its promises and that ignores the will of the people. We have to do better. We owe our fallen heroes more than that. Now, of course, Obama and Clinton will also tell you that they care about our children's future. And I want to believe them. But there is a profound difference in our two parties' vision for the future. Theirs is the party that thinks ISIS is a JV team, that responds to the death of Americans at Benghazi by asking, what difference does it make? And that thinks it's possible to make a deal with Iran, which celebrates as holidays Death to America Day and Death to Israel Day. My friends, this is madness. President Obama is a man who does everything backwards. He wants to close Guantanamo Bay and open up our borders. He exports jobs and imports terrorists. Enough is enough. And I am here to tell you there is a better vision for our future, a return to freedom. On education, your freedom to choose your child's education, even if you aren't as rich as Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama. On health care, your freedom to choose your own doctor without Obamacare. Taxes, your freedom to provide for your family without the IRS beating down your door. The internet, keep it free from taxes, free from regulation, and don't give it away to Russia and China. Freedom means free speech, not politically correct safe spaces. Freedom means religious freedom, whether you are Christian or Jew, Muslim or atheist. Whether you are gay or straight, the Bill of Rights protects the rights of all of us to live according to our conscience. Freedom means the right to keep and bear arms and to protect your family. Freedom means that every human life is precious and must be protected. Freedom means means Supreme Court justices who don't dictate policy, but instead follow the Constitution. And freedom means recognizing that our Constitution allows states to choose policies that reflect local values. Colorado might decide something different than Texas. New York, different than Iowa. That's the way it's supposed to be. Diversity. If not, what's the point of having states to begin with? Now, Hillary Clinton believes that government should make virtually every choice in your life. Education, healthcare, marriage, speech, all dictated out of Washington. But something powerful is happening. We've seen it in both parties. We've seen it in the United Kingdom's unprecedented Brexit vote to leave the European Union. Voters are overwhelmingly rejecting the political establishment and overwhelmingly rejecting big government. That is a profound victory, and it is one earned by each and every one of you. People are fed up with politicians who don't listen to them, fed up with a corrupt system that benefits the elites instead of working men and women. We deserve an immigration system that puts America first and, yes, builds a wall to keep America safe. A government that stops admitting ISIS terrorists as refugees. We deserve trade policies that put the interest of American farmers and manufacturing jobs over the global interests that are funding the lobbyists. And if we stand together and choose freedom, our future will be brighter. Freedom will bring back jobs and raise wages. Freedom will lift people out of dependency to the dignity of work. We can do this. 47 years ago to this day, America put the very first man on the moon. That was the power of freedom. Our party, the Republican Party, was founded to defeat slavery. Abraham Lincoln, the first Republican president, signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Together, we passed the Civil Rights Act, and together we fought to eliminate Jim Crow laws. That's our collective legacy, although the media will never share it with you. Those were fights for freedom, and so is this. Sergeant Michael Smith stood up to protect our freedom. So do the soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines every day fighting radical Islamic terrorism. So did the family of Alton Sterling, who bravely called to end the violence. So did the families of those murdered at the Charleston Emmanuel AME Church, who forgave that hateful, bigoted murderer. And so can we. We deserve leaders who stand for principle, who unite us all behind shared values, who cast aside anger for love. That is the standard we should expect from everybody. And to those listening, please, don't stay home in November. If you love our country and love your children as much as I know that you do, stand and speak and vote your conscience. Vote for candidates up and down the ticket who you trust to defend our freedom and to be faithful to the Constitution. Enthusiasm of the New York delegation. And I will tell you, it is love of freedom that has allowed millions to achieve their dreams. Like my mom, the first in her family to go to college, and my dad, who's here tonight, who fled prison and torture in Cuba, coming to Texas with just $100 sewn into his underwear. And it is love that I hope will bring comfort to a grieving 9-year-old girl in Dallas. And God willing, propel her to move forward and dream and soar and make her daddy proud. We must make the most of our moment to fight for freedom, to protect our God-given rights, even of those with whom we don't agree, so that when we are old and gray, and when our work is done, and we give those we love one final kiss goodbye, we will be able to say, freedom matters, and I was part of something beautiful. case we have to make to the American people, the case each person in this room has to make to the American people, is to commit to each of them that we will defend freedom and be faithful to the Constitution. We will unite the party, we will unite the country by standing together for shared values, by standing for liberty. God bless each and every one of you, and God bless the United States of America.
On the convention floor, as Senator Cruz does not endorse Donald Trump despite the cries from the audience,
we were with
and
him
the
on
video
job
of the
sites.
family
We were with
starts
him
now.
in the company.